Well, good morning from Wales. It's not as rainy as it was yesterday. I don't think it's raining at the moment, which is great, which means that if my knee is feeling better, if you listened to my video yesterday or read my blog, I hurt my knee Friday, and between that and the weather, I wasn't all that active yesterday, although I did stand up to draw for a while. It seems a bit better. I've been downstairs to get coffee because my office studio is upstairs. I've been awake for a while, but I haven't been able to shift my body for a while. So hopefully I'll get out perhaps this afternoon, which would be great. And I thought it's a morning, so it's morning drawing. Perhaps I'll just call my videos that from now on, morning drawing, because that's exactly what it is. It's my warm-up and everything. So yesterday I showed some work on me working on this particular drawing. It's now finished, apart from needing colour or shadow. But I want to scan it into the computer to do that. I really don't feel happy when I use traditional media, which means it must be time for me to have a big clear out, perhaps. And when I'm choosing to use digital art for colour more and more, then it's time, I think. It certainly makes space for storing all these extra books and other things I've got. Anyway, so what I thought I'd do is put some of the newer or different or altered kinds of patterns and shapes that I like in this into my visual dictionary. And this came about because last night I had a lovely get together on Zoom with some people from the Facebook group, Angela Porter's Colouring Book Fans, and I offered them the opportunity to come and meet me and have a chat with me, but as usual it was more of me chatting. I can talk for Britain, as I say, and I sometimes forget to take a breath or pause and let other people speak, and especially as things had to be translated, because there were two lovely Brazilian ladies there, Monica and Andrea, who one spoke English, the other didn't, so things needed to be translated. But it was really lovely to meet you, Debbie and Katja from Germany as well, and it was really lovely for people just to come and say hello. And it was nice and small, so it's a new thing for me, and I'm going to have to learn various things and think about how it goes forward, but that's a whole different thing. And Katja from Germany asked me what's the source of my inspiration and where do I get all of these ideas from. And I've talked about this before. I've got all kinds of sources of inspiration, from nature to architecture to illuminated manuscripts to microscopic images of the world, from above, to prehistoric pottery, to La Tène art, Iron Age, early Celtic, Anglo-Saxon jewellery, Art Nouveau, Art Deco I particularly like, and the latest one is looking at so I guess movie props, things from Star Wars is the first that comes to mind, but I'm sure I'll be acquiring books of art and so on from other things that I absolutely love, like Lord of the Rings, which draws on a lot of inspirations that I do. I can, you see it and you go, oh yeah, I know what that came from or what that is. So, but for Katja, and I also said, and we were talking, and I said, well, I keep a visual dictionary of all my favourite patterns and shapes and motifs that I like. I guess patterns and motifs would be a better way of saying it, amongst other things. And so here, these are Zentangle patterns in the main, or in the most, or others that I've observed and happen to appear in Zentangle, because nothing's unique in this world really. Spirals and circles and arc shapes and zigzag lines have been used since prehistoric times, since humans first decided to make marks on the inside of a cave or to carve out shapes on rocks. There's common shapes and patterns that exist throughout the whole of, across the whole world actually, that fascinate. Others have come from perhaps seeing other doodles that people have done. I say doodles, doodle style drawings. I prefer to say stylized, stylistic, simplified. Said before, doodling to me means aimlessly drawing. And if you're going to draw a cactus, you're not doodling, you're drawing with purpose. And yes, simple, yes, it's stylized, yes, it's very clear what it is, like these up here, but there's a charm in simplifying things, as there is a beauty in doing hyper-realistic. So I showed them all this, and they were amazed by this. But you know, it's how I keep things in some kind of order. I catalogue them, I suppose, and I do have sections and headings and blank pages because I haven't filled them in yet. And then because I thought it'd be a good idea to leave blank pages. And then that was until I actually looked into bullet journaling and discovered I could have the start of a collection on one page, add something else when I needed to straight after it, and then reference the previous page to a new one. Like, I don't know if, yeah, you can see it here. Like this is page 35, but the last page of the last section of Abstract Botanicals was page 17. So if I go back to page 17, that's where this section on, I guess, botanicals, I say abstract, it should be stylised really. And then on page 18, there's a page of crystals. So if I had more crystals further down, you know, in one of my last pages, I'd have a reference here if I started drawing crystals here back to page 18. So, and I think it was Andrea who commented that it shows I'm a scientist because I'm cataloguing and organising things by type. And I guess that's true. And so there's loads of things in here. And when I see things, and I collected these together for, I think it was for a Dangler Day, but I also referred to them when I did Entangled Christmas for Creative Haven a couple of years back. So they're here as a starting point as well, and there'll be themes related to books I'm working on and so on. So, you know, it's just from all kinds of places, and if it interests me, if it catches my attention, I've got a pen and paper to hand, I'll note it down. If I haven't, it may disappear or it may come up out there. These were all collected and sort of like started. I remember this because these were the start of the idea for Doodle Worlds. These are from one of my favourite kids' cartoons, British one. It's called Through the Trapdoor, and Bonehead, the skull in there, and it's hilarious. It's got a lot of adult type humour in it that young kids wouldn't get. I just love it. But cute animals, and you'll recognise these in Doodle Worlds. Philodoodles, because I was reading about these people who do doodle art. I'm doing air quotes because it's not doodle art if it's got purpose. I don't think it has. There's some Art Nouveau in here. More botanicals. More favourite patterns, and these are from Latene culture art, early Celtic art, and they are shapes and forms that I really love, and I find it incredibly difficult to deconstruct or to work out how it was done. But the more I try, the more I begin to understand. And these actually combined with more mechanical bits would actually work really well to give that kind of, yeah, a sort of science fiction with elegance, I suppose, because they are really, really elegant. I tried doing a Zentangle pattern here, right mess. Oh gosh, I look at them and think, how do you do that? Let's have a look at the deconstruction and see if I can do it. And the answer often is no. But I keep going back to ones I particularly like, and eventually I find my mind will deconstruct it in its own way. And that's fine, and perhaps I'll change it in the process. It's more based on that, and more Latene, early Celtic art. And there's also Etruscan and various others from cells, microscopic life, which is always fun, from, you know, microscopic cells and bacteria, viruses, you know, things like that. And then back to favourite patterns, Verdant Index, words of inspiration and encouragement. Nobody is perfect. Perfectly imperfect. This is a lovely one. It's Tiger, Tigr, I think it is, by Thomas Padros. And it is incredibly three-dimensional when it's shaded. It's fabulous. Just a mandala with that as a major ring in it. And, well, I surprised myself. Some others here, variations on a theme, dangles, because why not? And so many others. So I'm just flicking through, and I've got a whole wealth of things in here. Now you see more crystals, but I put lots of things on there, so I haven't referenced it necessarily. And perhaps I ought to. Perhaps I'll do that later. Others, more sort of abstractly stylised kinds of flowers. Must have seen them somewhere, because that's not typically me, but it will become typically me if I use them. It will change. Oh, these were looking at traditional kinds of mandalas and patterns people use, and just looking at them. Often it's for drawing practice. Yeah, this counts as drawing practice. More things, perhaps, you know, seeds and cells. And oh, I know where this is from. It's from the Codex Seraphina. That is really interesting. It's a manuscript that makes no sense, where somebody's used their imagination to create things. And I discovered it online. I haven't bought a copy of it because the copies are really, really expensive. I think there's an anniversary edition. And I'm thinking, can I justify buying this when I've already got a PDF version? The answer is most probably, but probably not. But all these wonderful, and the shapes and forms are just fantastic in there. And not all of them, some of them are very, very disturbing actually. Or I find them disturbing. Other people would find it interesting, fascinating and fun. But that's fine. And so, you know, this is all useful. So I'm going to add from this drawing some of the motifs. Glasses go on. Some of the motifs and patterns that I find particularly interesting. I'm also going to find a slightly thicker pen. That one will do. And it's not a drawing pen. It's just, what is it? I'm not sponsored for any of these things, by the way. I'm not paid for. I'm not gifted them. There's a Faber-Castell Grip 2010 fine writer, so it's got a nice fine nib in it. It's just a writing pen, but it works the same way. It's just something different for me to draw with. So one of the shapes that I know I really have enjoyed drawing, I'm just checking you can see, is this really. There is just something really lovely about this. I've drawn the square, the corner's a bit square. I'd prefer to have them a bit more rounded. But there is just something really, I don't know, whether it's like that or whether I'm going to make it shallower and this, or even more shallow. Oh, that's no more shallow. It's changing that arc there. Let's have a look. I really don't know what it is about that shape, but it really caught my attention, especially when you add things to it. So just makes really interesting shapes and forms. To nest them is quite fun. I say nesting because there's one inside the other, which adds a completely different feel to it. And just having something like that, or like this. I'm not going to worry about doing shadows and highlights, but of course underneath then I've got the option to add other things. So. And I sometimes do this when I add to my sketchbook. I'll add things, I'll take the basic and I'll start adding things to get ideas of what I could do. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And I call this a sketchbook. It's not really, it is a record of things, but in a different kind of way. It's more of a, I suppose sketchbooks could be references, but they don't have to be, so. That one I meant to look like that, so it's sticking out. That's quite fun. And do it that way. It's like a little window through to the back. So if I was to colour this in, I could do this in one colour, this in, say that in, I don't know, pale yellow, this one in a nice pale green, and that one there, I could make that pale yellow so it really looks like a cut out. So that these have been just a bit of fun. You know, these are things that I like, and of course lots of ways to add details. Gee, this pen is bleeding quite a bit on this paper. Is it going through? Well, it's not going through, but it does seem to be spreading out just a bit much. So there's an artist called Hunter Vassar who, I'm not sure if it was him who said it, but sort of like a lot of his art goes by, you know, nature abhors a straight line. And so his architecture, obviously there are some straight lines, but walls can be wobbly and columns can be all kinds of made up of all kinds of surprising shapes, you know, based on circles, because this is, you know, extend this, there's a circle there. And I really like his work. It's quirky, it's bright, it's colourful, it's really interesting. It adds a great amount of interest to architecture. It makes it different, I suppose. So I could add shapes like this. But as I'm doing this, I'm thinking about this and changing them, so perhaps things like this will end up in drawings in the future. It's taking one shape and sort of like altering it. So we have a look at something else. So half circle. Because these can just get bigger and have supports and whatever on there. But I think I want that kind of makes it look just a bit more interesting, I suppose. Who knows? Let me have a look. So I'm going to do I suppose an antenna off the top. It's not perfect, nor does it have to be. It's only a reference, and that looks interesting there. It's like that. Yeah. Just like that. But there's all kinds of things then that could be added along here. I'm not detailing it in any great way, I'm just drawing. So yeah, so there's that. And no doubt I could add even more of these. The one that I'm really intrigued by that appeared, because this wasn't from anything I'd really seen in particular. Seemed to flow on from what I was drawing at the time on that little image. It's this kind of shape. I'll show you. It's, where is it? It's down here. This shape has appeared here, but on the side, because you can put them any way you like. And this, I really like this asymmetrical shape. That's, you've got the same kind of shape on each side of the central line, but there's an asymmetry to it, and there's something rather pleasing about that as well. And it's quite nice to do things perhaps like this, or I could do circles. And if I chose to use a pencil, which I think I might do now, so I fiddle around looking for a pencil. Oh, there we are, this one here. Because I will use a pencil from time to time in art, because, you know, there are times when I need that guide. So you have a look. Yeah, that didn't go quite right, but I know what I wanted to do. I want this sense of having little bits that interlock, almost like a jigsaw. And that's quite fun. But I can also do it in, I think, this kind of way. I could go back then and remove those lines, or find a way to make them so they interlock in one way or another. But that's quite nice, but I really quite like that. This was fun as well down here. It's like a plate, metal I suppose, or something, or not. It's almost like there's a cutout here. I have to put a bottom in, but it really doesn't matter. And then put a series of what could be vents or blocks on the top, which will look either as if they're cut out or going inwards, depending on how I shade it. But I quite liked that as well. That really sort of inspired me. And then I've got borders, so a lot of them are curved, but I tend to draw them in straight lines because, well, I can curve them then if I wish. So one's like this, and then I've got underneath really simple patterns. This one, and then a really narrow one where I've put, this is a favourite sort of like filling pattern I like. Sometimes I curve it, sometimes I'll make it like zigzaggy triangles. In the Zentangle realms it's called Shattuck, something like, it's spelt with two T's, but it always sounds like they say it's Shattuck. But it was something I was using before I ever saw Zentangle. So, and again, it's one of those universal kinds of patterns that you find. But, you know, I'm not disparaging Zentangle at all here. I think what they've done is fantastic, and they've packaged up a way for everybody to enjoy drawing and to do it in a meditative kind of way. And it may have been the case that if they hadn't done it first, it would have been something that I'd do, but it's now been done, and that's fine. And I'm quite happy to have a look at the patterns that people create, and sometimes I use them, or get inspiration from them, because like everything, it's all inspiration. And then I've got another thin border, but a thinner one. Again of these. The different densities of patterns add interest. And you know, these others are quite plain at the moment. But if I were to use them in drawings, then colour and light and shadow would be added, contrast, so they would come alive in that kind of way. I think we saw that last night in some of these where is it? Ones like this, where you can see the simple line art there, but the ones that have had colour added to them, it just makes them look more alive, more three-dimensional, even though it's not very good in places. It's just that sense of how to add colour to them. And it really is colour, or even simple shadow. I love that. I love these. I need to use these. Yeah, need to use those. Wish I had some of those page flags to put in there. Oh, even better. Put the ribbon in there so I won't forget. So these come alive with colour, but that's not the point of this. Sometimes I will go and add colour just because I fancy colouring something and I don't want to mess up a piece of art, or I want to work out how something looks with colour added. But mainly it's all black and white line art in here. Sometimes I use a coloured pen for drawing. It just depends what mood I'm in particularly. So there's those. Let's have a look here. Okay. And I do rather like dot grid paper for recording things on. It does help to keep things all, you know, sort of like level compared one to another, and to set things out neatly, because I still like things set out neatly-ish. What I've got away from is doing things perfectly. That used to be a problem with me in the early days of this. And I'm still very tempted to so at times think, I'm going to start again, I'm going to do this again, I'm going to filter out everything I like and what I don't like, move it all into a working, you know, start moving things into a more of a working journal, perhaps putting things together I want to use for a particular project. Actually, that's a really good idea. Yeah. Oh, God help. This is my latest journal, and you can see that by mistake I ordered, this is a like term again, I pay for everything by myself and everything, and I ordered one that was in stock, because then a lot of the colours aren't in stock, and I thought, I haven't got a grey one, because I've got most, you know, worked my way through. Thought I'd ordered one with dot grid, it arrived with squared, and I went, oh no. And but I thought, right, we'll work with it, it is what it is, it's, you know, squared or dot. The dots are less obtrusive, the squares on these, once you put pattern and things on it, they disappear into the background. So I started putting my favourite sort of like Zentangle patterns in, as well as what they call fragments. So these essentially are made up of fragments, so each square is sort of like one little piece that can make up a pattern, and you can vary its orientation or how you put them together, the sort of like alternate them or rotate them and things like that. There's a whole page full of them, nearly, a couple of spaces left. And yeah, I've been putting those fragments in so I can use them in my own way. Others I prefer to do as a collection of shapes. I started writing names in, then I thought, I won't use that, and then I have some notes here, so I just write this here, that will make sense to me. This pen really does bleed on paper. It doesn't bleed through, there's some shadowing, but boy does it go thick. Right, so I'll carry on here. So that's another good reason for me not to use these. So that's, you can't see, that's this one up here. And then there's another. Oh, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Dear goodness. Tree pollen season. And then here, I sort of have mirrored those triangles in the upper layer. Let me have a look. I did something different. I can't see. Oh yeah, I made them really have shadows on one side compared to the ones on the top, which did I do anything? I didn't do anything to the ones on the top, but I would be very tempted to make them appear as if they are cut out and these stand up. It's not perfect, but I'm happy with that. And then there were some others. Another pattern that I used there. And I guess what I'm doing here is, in this page, I'm actually collecting together things I've used in this image. See, I'm thinking out loud. What was the one? Oh, it's that one, yeah. Even though they might be elsewhere in this little notebook, these are the ones that I've used currently. Simple zigzag, sort of triangles. And then I just nest smaller triangles inside. Tangle term aura. But that actually, that kind of pattern appears quite often in my work as well. I like triangles. There's another one on the page. I'll draw it first and point it out, because on this particular drawing I really didn't get it perfect. So I did lines like this, then I drew a line along here, then I say perfect, I was drawing so small I wasn't quite sure what I was doing, but now I'm drawing on a slightly bigger scale here. It always feels better when I put these borders on, and then I can just finish it off like that if I wanted, or just keep repeating. That pattern was taken from here. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you should be able to if you have a big image. Just triangles, and just trying to put them together in a slightly different way. And again, if I use the base of those little triangles I drew as the base for those, I can add that as another pattern. There, that works. That's interesting. And even more so if I colour some of these bits in. Black. Oh, that works. That makes it completely different. All of that. It really, really simplifies the pattern in an interesting kind of way. So we've got those. What other things? Oh yeah, I will draw this as a curve because I've got the space here. And then just something simple like this. On that one, on the page I did do both black, but here just shade them. So that's an interesting sort of connector that I've used. What else did I want to add here? Anyway, it's up here. It's this one. Yeah, so things like this as well. And then start an arrow at the bottom and flare out. This is quite Art Deco, I guess. And give the bottoms a little oomph. And I can add things in here, so like little windows, or if I'd used a finer pen or left, I can still do it by going down there, like a spiral, sort of like angular spiral. It's like that, or a circle just to add interest. And of course I can put something on that side to add some more interest, like this. Add bands like that. Could draw the bands in first, or have them smaller. Lots of options. Just let the pen do some wandering in a way. But it's not doodling as such, because there's always been some kind of conscious, I'm going to draw this line here. I sometimes say that it is an unconscious kind of thing, what I do. There's that shape again, but I've just seen something interesting that I want to include here, where I've done this and then added lines like that, hoping the lines will give that illusion that it'll be that particular piece is curved perhaps, and shadow and highlight would really help. There, same there. Don't like this pen for drawing. It's a shame because I've got two. I've got this and I've got a pink one. They also come undone as I use them, which is irritating. Okay, so that was here. See, but I also had, it's the other way round, but I also had things growing out of it. Can you have sort of like mechanical structure-y things growing out? Why not? Grooves or whatever in. So that's quite interesting. And things like this. This is quite a common motif that appears in work where I add more mechanicals, I suppose. Be a lovely way of saying it. So that's quite a mechanical kind of thing there. So this is, you know, it's something I do sometimes, and perhaps something I need to do a bit more often. When I draw things, is sometimes these new shapes or ideas will crop up, or I find them elsewhere. And it is nice to make a record of them, because I never know when I might be looking for something or get that inspiration of things I'd like to put into a design, and actually do a bit more planning perhaps. I mean, there's all kinds of things in here. Some are very classically Zentangle, some not so. So this one was an interesting one to do. This, and then the spaces, and I guess fins of some kind. But again, it's quite art I guess my influence of loving things like Art Deco, Art Nouveau is coming out even here. And so you end up with something like that. Could this work as a wing? So I could even do this in a slightly different way where I separate it, that basic shape out, and altering my pencil lines a bit here, but they were only guides. I named it something that perhaps looks more like a wing, those sections. That's always fun. And then I love having sections where I can, they're big enough that I can nest some shapes in. So here I can do that, perhaps here, something like that. Just keep doing it and seeing what happens. Again, do you know, it's amazing. I'm going through this and I'm thinking this is why I don't do it, because I have so many things that I find really interesting and have done. Okay, let's have a look. And I could spend as long adding motifs to this book as it does for me to draw these things. So what I want to do here is add some fairly regularly spaced little black triangles, because they do need to stand out from the rest. And then what I did here was drew a line like that. Again, in Zentangle speak, it's an echo or an aura. And I am adding some shadow here. I'm going to make this line thicker, because again it gives it that sense that this is a lot thicker than it really is. And then I think I do others. My problem is I can never see, I lose where I was on the page. Another one, which I can either, I could do the same thing or leave it. So that's quite nice there. And then on the other side of these, I did arches. And just a half one there, I could have just left it out, but you know, or perhaps gone down like that. And again, those, perhaps something like that, or shadow, even lines like that, cross hatching, just to add depth and weight there. That one could be like that, why not? So things like that are fun. Trying to see what else I've got here that is something a bit different that I would like to add. That's a very unusual shape for me to use because it's quite angular, but it also kind of works, especially when I perhaps shadow behind it, bring it out. So I'm going to extend this one, because then here fill this with balls, bearings, seeds, whatever you want to call them. And then another unusual one for me, be this, like this, perhaps with border underneath and just a bit of support there. So there's been all kinds of all kinds of interesting things going on this drawing, and things I'd like to keep. A reference of, perhaps, for future use. Something like that, which is perhaps shadow there. And I also did with this one, because there was a line above it, some lines here. I've decided to change it up a bit. This one lives, that's that one. This one is down here. This one is over there. This one I'd like to do. So let's have a look. Let's do this over here. So I've got an interesting shape on the end of this, because it goes down and up. It's curved here, but it's curved in my drawing, but here I'm going to do it straight because I can. And then I've got one quite hefty border there, and this one has little, like, bites out of it, I suppose, little triangular shaped bites out of it. So it would ideally work if the background there was black, or I could draw it so that we've got them like that, like little cogwheels, I suppose. So let me have a look. Do that as an alternative. Then, okay, lost where I was with this. It's the problem, I see these things and think, oh yeah, I'd like, oh, there it is. Yeah, so this one is, and I know these lines were roughly in line with these little bites there, but I did that, and then I just put a line behind it like that, so it's behind in some way, and then that all seems to kind of just work together, which is fun. Yeah, and adding shadow to these really helps to set them above. You know, if I wanted to get really clever, is that the shadow below that line can be thicker, so it looks like this is thicker than it is, and a shadow there as well. That is getting clever, and it means that I have to think about the amount of space I leave far more. So I've got things like that. I've got little shapes like this with circles in, which are quite cute and fun, as well as shapes that go like this, that perhaps have these and what have you there, as well as shapes that will go up like this and perhaps come down like that. So we've got a different kind of shape formed around that. These, I've got the semicircles, but ones like this are really fun. It's a bit like these ones, I suppose, but not mirrored on either side. And then I've got this, which is quite interesting. I've got a really interesting arrangement somewhere of these. Where I've sort of nested them like this, which is kind of interesting. Like, I suppose like layers of metal fins or fan blades or whatever. I'm just having another scan round there. So there are some circular motifs that I've got here, and these are actually, this one is actually where the whole of that particular design worked, or started from rather. I could say everything pivoted from here, and it did. Like this, so, and so on. So it was here, everything started there, and everything has grown out from there, and that, I quite like that arrangement of circles there. Other things are very familiar to me. That's an interesting shape as well, which I haven't put here anywhere. But I like that one as well. And then a lot of things, these shapes, and then what can I put beside it? How can I connect things together? It's just simple curved lines here. Others are just like little blocks, as if they're holding these pieces together. It's like a little pot or a little bulb or something, I don't know. And here, things like this, just really simple. This kind of shape put together, I did enjoy as well. Yes, the word is enjoy. I enjoyed making these shapes, and especially working quite differently for me, like this. And then what I did here was add some dots, which could be rivets, could just be decoration. It really doesn't matter. So that one's quite fun there. This one, I'm not going to make a record of this one or that one, because these are pretty standard for what I do. That's a Mayan glyph and some patterns that you'd see around them. This is something I've used and I use quite often. It's very organic and nice. Same with these little daisy-like flowers. It's a common motif with me. Poke leaf, centangle. I use that a fair amount. I like to fill things in with little circles. What do they call it in Zentangle? Tipple. But it's just a nice filler pattern, in the same way I've used cross hatches over here. But I think that bottom there, have I got that bottom? Don't know. Just add it there, because I can pop it on the bottom of things, just like there. That looks like something is growing out of something, but that's quite a nice shape. And I've got that one, haven't I? Yeah, I'll add it again. So what is the interesting thing here is to have something else here that might be a different shape, so there's something else here, and that works nicely. And again, in this one I've added a spiral there. This one had like a cutout and dots going around it. Just simple things to add interest. They could be all kinds of things. It's just there. I don't think about a story, but perhaps there are stories and things. This is almost like a pile of mechanical stuff, and it's abandoned ancient machinery or ancient sculpture of some kind, and nature's beginning to take over again. We've got things growing. These could be some weird kind of alien seed pod carrier things. Who knows? I don't. Usually, I'm not very good at using my imagination to tell stories. I'm very good with imagination when I'm told a story. So that's my morning drawing. My stomach is beginning to growl. My coffee is still hot because I'm using an insulated mug. Well, it's a nice temperature to glug down. And it's time for me to go and sort breakfast out and get myself sorted for a kind of, yeah, it's coming up to 10 o'clock, so I've got an hour for breakfast and to sort myself out before I go to a meeting for an hour at 11. So I hope that has given you some insight. And it's a very, it's a different but similar kind of page to other things. But I actually think this is a nice way for me to go forward, and I've had that idea of collecting things together that I'd like to use in a design. And perhaps I'll start doing that later today, because I do want to do some drawings. As said, it was lovely to meet people last night on Zoom, so I need to sort out another time and date on Zoom for people to come and say hello. Note to self, don't use that Faber-Castell pen again. It's a bit thick and it bleeds. It's alright for writing with, but yeah. So there we are. I'd like to say thank you for joining me on this morning drawing journey, adding things to my visual dictionary. No doubt you'll see these things appearing in artwork for a while, and then things change again, because that's the nature of art. Inspiration, or my emotions, my feelings, or what's going on in the world or in my life influence what I include. And if you're a subscriber, thank you. If you're not a subscriber yet, consider subscribing. If you've enjoyed this video, if it's given you some ideas what you can do, then fabulous, but give me a like. And sharing would be good. Share the love, share the art, and just thank you for joining me. So bye bye for now.